The Phantom Contact Commander Elena Vasquez pressed her palm against the cool metal wall of her ship's bridge and felt the subtle vibration of the quantum engines. The U.E.'s Wraith moved through space like a whisper, its advanced stealth systems bending light and energy around its hull. For 3 months, she and her crew had been deep in Hegemony territory, gathering intelligence on humanity's greatest threat. The Hegemony ruled over 2/3 of the known galaxy. For 800 years, they had crushed every species that dared resist their expansion. Their massive fleets patrolled the star lanes. Their weapons could crack planets, and their armies had never known defeat. They considered themselves the apex of evolution, the rightful rulers of all intelligent life. They had never encountered humans before. Helena studied the tactical display, showing the Kepler 442 system ahead. 3 rocky planets orbited a yellow star, and the middle world contained enough rare Earth elements to power 1,000 starships. The Hegemony had established a massive mining operation there, using enslaved alien workers to extract the precious materials. "Captain," said Lieutenant Marcus Chun from his station, "we're approaching optimal scanning range." "Their patrol routes haven't changed in 6 weeks." Elena nodded. The Hegemony's arrogance was their weakness. They followed the same patterns, used the same tactics, and never adapted because they never needed to. 8 centuries of easy victories had made them predictable. "Begin passive scans," Elena ordered. "I want to know everything about their defenses, their ship configurations, and their communication frequencies." The Wraith's sensors reached out invisibly, mapping the enemy positions. 12 Hegemony warships patrolled the system, each one 3 times larger than Elena's vessel. Their hulls gleamed with energy shields. Their weapon ports bristled with plasma cannons, and their sensor arrays swept space constantly for threats. But they couldn't see the human ship. Chief Engineer Sarah Kim looked up from her console. "Stealth. Field is holding steady, Captain. Their sensors are scanning right through us. It's like we don't exist." The stealth technology represented 15 years of human innovation. While the Hegemony had grown complacent, humanity had pushed the boundaries of science. They bent space-time around their ships, created quantum cloaking fields, and developed weapons that could phase through conventional shields. Marcus frowned at his readings. "Captain, I'm detecting something interesting. Their shield harmonics are identical across all ships. Same frequency, same modulation pattern. They've never needed to vary them," Elena realized. "No enemy has ever penetrated a Hegemony shield before." The implications were staggering. If all Hegemony shields operated on the same frequency, a properly calibrated weapon could disable entire fleets simultaneously. Elena's fingers flew over her control panel, recording every detail. On the bridge of the Hegemony Dreadnought Dominion's edge, Admiral Croder reviewed routine patrol reports. With bored efficiency, his massive ship controlled the Kepler 442 system with casual authority. 800 meters long and bristling with weapons, it represented the pinnacle of Hegemony military might. "Sir," reported his sensor officer, "minor gravitational anomaly detected in Sector 7. Duration, 3 seconds." Croder barely looked up from his reports. Space was full of anomalies, cosmic dust, solar flares, quantum fluctuations. His sensors detected thousands of minor disturbances every day. "Investigate?" asked the officer. "Unnecessary. Log it as cosmic debris." The sensor officer made the notation and returned to his duties. Neither he nor Admiral Croder realized that the cosmic debris was actually humanity's most advanced reconnaissance ship, studying their every weakness. Elena watched the enemy patrol patterns with growing excitement. The Hegemony ships moved in rigid formations, following predetermined routes with military precision. Their commanders never deviated from established protocols, never adapted to changing conditions. Their flying museum pieces, she whispered to Marcus. "Look at their weapon systems, particle beam arrays from 3 centuries ago. Their shields are based on obsolete energy matrix designs. Even their hull materials are outdated." Marcus pulled up comparative analysis on his screen. Our intelligence was right. They haven't upgraded their technology in 400 years. Why should they? They've never lost a battle. But Elena knew that was about to change. Hidden throughout, human space, the largest fleet in Earth's history, was preparing for deployment. 200 ships equipped with technology the Hegemony couldn't imagine, crewed by men and women who had studied every battle the Hegemony had ever fought. "Captain," interrupted Communications Officer Lisa Park, "priority message from Earth Command." Elena read the encrypted transmission with growing anticipation. Fleet Admiral Rodriguez had given the final authorization. Operation Silent Storm would begin in 72 hours. "Signal Earth Command," Elena ordered. "Tell them the Kepler 442 system is ready for liberation. Enemy defenses cataloged, weaknesses identified, civilian populations located." As the Wraith prepared to depart, Elena took one last look at the Hegemony forces. Admiral Croder's fleet continued its routine patrol, completely unaware that their empire's doom was approaching through the darkness of space. Back on Earth, Fleet Admiral Maria Rodriguez stood in the command center of Luna Base, watching the final preparations for humanity's greatest military operation. Through the reinforced windows, she could see dozens of human warships hanging in space above the moon's surface. The ships looked nothing like traditional Earth vessels. Sleek and angular, they seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their hulls were composed of metamaterials that could shift density and composition at the molecular level. Their weapons were based on exotic physics that could bypass conventional defenses entirely. "Admiral," reported her aide, "all fleet commanders confirm readiness. Operation Silent Storm is go for implementation." Rodriguez nodded grimly. For 50 years, humanity had watched the Hegemony crush smaller civilizations, enslave entire species, and spread their brutal empire across the galaxy. Earth's leaders had debated intervention, but the Hegemony seemed too powerful, too vast to challenge. Then human scientists made breakthrough discoveries in quantum mechanics, exotic matter manipulation, and dimensional physics. Suddenly, the impossible became achievable. Humanity could build ships that existed partially outside normal spacetime, weapons that ignored physical laws, and shields that drew power from parallel dimensions. "Begin deployment," Rodriguez ordered. "All ships to assigned positions. Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for every species the Hegemony has enslaved." Across the solar system, human fleets engaged their quantum drives and vanished into hyperspace. They would approach their targets through dimensions the Hegemony didn't know existed, strike with weapons the enemy couldn't understand, and disappear. Before retaliation became possible, Commander Elena Vasquez felt the familiar sensation of dimensional translation as the Wraith dropped back into normal space near the Proxima Centauri system. Here, another Hegemony fleet guarded a network of slave labor camps where captured aliens built warships for their oppressors. "All stealth systems active," reported Sarah Kim. "We're invisible to their sensors." Elena studied the tactical display. 24 Hegemony vessels protected the shipyards, including 2 of their powerful battlecruisers. The enemy fleet represented enough firepower to sterilize a dozen worlds. "Time to test our new toys," Elena said with a cold smile. "Target the lead battlecruiser. Prepare quantum torpedoes." The quantum torpedoes were Elena's favorite weapons. They existed in a state of quantum superposition, allowing them to pass through solid matter until they reached their intended target. No shield could stop them. No armor could deflect them. "Firing," announced Marcus. The Wraith launched 12 torpedoes that immediately phased out of normal space. To Hegemony sensors, nothing had happened. Their instruments detected no weapons fire, no energy signatures, no threat at all. The torpedoes reappeared inside the battlecruiser's hull and detonated simultaneously. The massive ship's lights flickered and died as its power systems overloaded. Emergency klaxons wailed as the vessel went dead in space, its engines silent, its weapons offline. "What happened?" shouted the Hegemony fleet commander. "Report, unknown." "Sir, the Eternal Conquest just lost all power. No weapons impact detected, no energy signatures recorded." Before the commander could respond, 11 more ships suffered the same fate. Their lights went out, their engines stopped, their weapons fell silent. In less than 30 seconds, half the Hegemony fleet was floating helplessly in space. "Impossible," whispered the commander. "Nothing can penetrate our shields without being detected." Elena watched the chaos through her sensors with satisfaction. The quantum torpedoes had worked perfectly, disabling the enemy ships without killing their crews. Humanity fought with precision, not brutality. "Begin liberation protocol," she ordered. "Signal the slave camps. Their guards are about to lose. Their reinforcements." Similar scenes played out across Hegemony space as human fleets struck without warning. Entire enemy squadrons found themselves powerless, their advanced technology useless against weapons they couldn't perceive or defend against. On the Hegemony capital world of Dominion Prime, Warlord Zephyx received fragmentary reports of the attacks with growing alarm. His species had ruled the galaxy for 8 centuries through superior technology and ruthless efficiency. No enemy had ever challenged their dominance successfully. "How many fleets have been attacked?" he demanded. 17 confirmed, my lord," reported his intelligence chief. "All suffered simultaneous system failures. Ships disabled, but not destroyed. Crews captured, but not killed." Zephyx's 4 eyes narrowed with suspicion. This was not how warfare worked in the galaxy. Species fought with massive fleets, obvious weapons, and brutal tactics. They didn't strike invisibly from nowhere and vanish without trace. "Who is responsible for these attacks?" "Unknown, my lord. No enemy has claimed responsibility. Our sensors detect no attacking vessels. It's as if our ships are being disabled by ghosts." Zephyx slammed his armored fist on his command throne. The Hegemony had conquered thousands of worlds, enslaved hundreds of species, and built the most powerful military force in galactic history. They would not be defeated by invisible phantoms. "Deploy the Infinity Fleet," he ordered. "Every available warship to defensive positions. If these ghosts want a war, we will give them one they will never forget." But even as he spoke, more reports arrived of disabled fleets and captured bases. The ghosts were everywhere at once, striking faster than the Hegemony could respond. For the first time in 800 years, the galaxy's dominant empire found itself truly threatened. Elena Vasquez smiled as she read the intercepted Hegemony communications. Their arrogance was turning to confusion, their confidence cracking under the pressure of an enemy they couldn't understand. The silent storm was only beginning, and already the empire was starting to break. Asterisk the Reckoning Warlord Zephyx stood in the center of his war room, surrounded by holographic displays showing Hegemony territory across the galaxy. Red markers indicated attacked fleets, yellow showed unresponsive bases, and orange marked systems where strange reports were coming in. Nearly a quarter of his empire's military assets had gone dark in less than a week. "My lord," reported Admiral Croter via emergency transmission, "the attacks are coordinated. Our enemies strike multiple targets simultaneously, disable our ships, without destroying them, then vanish completely. Our weapons cannot lock onto targets we cannot see." Zephyx's massive frame trembled with rage. His species had evolved as apex predators on a harsh world where only the strongest survived. They had brought that same ruthless efficiency to their conquest of the galaxy, crushing every civilization that dared oppose them. "What species possesses such technology?" he demanded. "Unknown, my lord. The attackers have made no demands, issued no threats, claimed no territory. They simply appear, disable our forces, and disappear." On the bridge of the UES Wraith, Commander Elena Vasquez coordinated the next phase of Operation Silent Storm. Her ship had just finished liberating the mining colonies in the Vega system, freeing 12,000 alien workers who had labored in hegemony chains for generations. "Captain," reported Marcus Chun, "Admiral Rodriguez is requesting status update from all fleet commanders." Elena activated the quantum communication array, instantly connecting her to every human ship across the galaxy. The technology allowed real-time coordination across impossible distances, giving humanity a massive tactical advantage. "This is Vasquez," she said into the communicator. "Vega system secured. 12,000 liberated. No human casualties. Hegemony response forces disabled and captured." Similar reports came in from dozens of commanders throughout hegemony space. Captain James Wright had freed the prison world of Tertius Prime. Commander Sarah Chun had disabled the massive shipyard at Wolf 359. Lieutenant Colonel Mike Torres had captured the hegemony's main weapons depot without firing a shot. "Admiral," Rodriguez's voice crackled through the communication array. "Outstanding work, all units. Intelligence reports indicate hegemony leadership is deploying the reserve fleets. Expect increased resistance as we move to Phase 2. Phase 2 meant striking at the heart of hegemony power, their core worlds, where billions of alien slaves worked in factories and farms to sustain the Empire's war machine. These systems would be heavily defended, but they were also where humanity could do the most good." Elena studied her next target, the industrial world of Sigma Draconis, where the bird-like aviaran people had been forced to manufacture hegemony weapons for 300 years. Intelligence indicated over 50 million aviarans worked in massive factory complexes, guarded by a fleet of 30 warships. "Plot course for Sigma Draconis," she ordered. "Time to free some birds." The Wraith slipped through hyperspace toward its destination, part of a coordinated assault that would hit 6 core systems simultaneously. Each attack was precisely timed to prevent the hegemony from concentrating their defenses. On Dominion Prime, Warlord Zephix received reports of the new attacks with increasing desperation. His military advisors spoke in hushed tones about impossible technologies and ghost fleets that struck without warning. "My lord," reported his chief of intelligence, "we have intercepted fragments of enemy communications. The attackers call themselves humans and claim to originate from a world called Earth." Zephix accessed his species' vast databases, searching for any reference to these humans. The files contained detailed information on thousands of intelligent species, from the militaristic Krogan to the peaceful Etherian energy beings. But there was no mention of humans anywhere in hegemony records. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "We have mapped every system for 1,000 light years in all directions. There are no unknown civilizations with this level of technology." His intelligence chief consulted additional databases. "My lord, Earth appears to be located in what we designate as Sector 7 Alpha, beyond the Outer Rim territories. Our scouts classified the area as containing only primitive species incapable of spaceflight." Zephix felt a chill run through his armored body. If the hegemony had been wrong about humanity's capabilities, what else had they missed? How many other species had they dismissed as primitive, while those civilizations secretly developed technologies beyond hegemony understanding? At Sigma Draconis, Alana's fleet arrived to find the hegemony defenders already on high alert. 30 warships patrolled in tight formations, their sensors sweeping space constantly for invisible enemies. The factory complexes on the planet below were protected by massive shield generators and surface-to-orbit weapons. "They're learning," observed Marcus as he studied the defensive positions. "Look at their formations. They're trying to eliminate blind spots." Elena smiled. The Hegemony's attempts at adaptation were too little, too late. Human technology operated on principles they couldn't comprehend, using physics they hadn't discovered. "Launch the liberation swarm," she ordered. From the Wraith's hull, 1,000 tiny drones emerged and scattered throughout the system. Each drone was no larger than a marble, completely invisible to conventional sensors, and equipped with enough quantum explosives to disable a warship. The drones approached, their targets through parallel dimensions, phasing in and out of normal space to avoid detection. They attached themselves to Hegemony ships like microscopic parasites, then activated their payload simultaneously. 30 warships suddenly found their computer systems completely scrambled. Navigation failed, weapons went offline, life support switched to emergency power. The proud Hegemony fleet was reduced to helpless metal drifting in space. "Begin planetary liberation," Elena commanded. On the surface of Sigma Draconis, Aviaran workers looked up from their assembly lines as the factory lights flickered and died. The massive shield generators, protecting the industrial complexes, powered down one by one. Guard towers fell silent. As their weapon systems failed, human dropships materialized in the factory courtyards, their stealth systems deactivating to reveal sleek vessels that seemed to be made of liquid metal. The ship's hatches opened, and human soldiers emerged, wearing advanced armor that made them look like technological angels. "Attention workers of Sigma Draconis," announced Captain Lisa Park through translation devices. "You are no longer slaves. The Hegemony forces guarding this world have been neutralized. You are free to choose your own destiny." An elderly Aviaran supervisor, his feathers gray with age and harsh labor, stepped forward cautiously. His species had been enslaved for so long that freedom seemed like an impossible dream. "Is this real?" he asked in his musical voice. "Are we truly free?" Captain Park nodded. "The humans of Earth have come to end Hegemony oppression. Your people will never be slaves again." The old Aviaran began to weep, his tears reflecting the morning sun. Around him, millions of his people stepped out of the factories and looked up at the sky with wonder. For the first time in 3 centuries, they were free. Similar scenes played out across 6 star systems as human forces liberated world after world. The crystalline Vorthen were freed from the mining colonies of Kepler 438. The amphibious Aquari escaped the underwater factories of Gliese. 581. The insectoid Zephyrians abandoned the agricultural complexes of Proxima Centauri. Zephix watched his empire crumble with growing horror. Entire systems were abandoning Hegemony rule as their slave populations rose up with human support. His military commanders reported that conventional tactics were useless against an enemy that existed partially outside normal spacetime. "My lord," reported Admiral Croter, "I am assembling the Omega fleet for a final counterattack. Every remaining warship, every weapon of mass destruction. If we cannot defeat these humans through conventional warfare, we will use planet-killer weapons to destroy their home world." Zephix nodded grimly. The Hegemony had built weapons capable of cracking worlds, turning entire planets into asteroids. If Earth could be located and destroyed, perhaps the human threat could be eliminated. But Elena Vasquez and her fellow commanders had anticipated this desperate move. Human intelligence had been monitoring Hegemony communications, tracking fleet movements, and preparing for exactly this scenario. "Admiral Rodriguez," Elena reported through the quantum communicator, "Hegemony forces are massing for counterattack. Planet-killer weapons confirmed among their arsenal." "Understood," came the reply. All units implement Endgame Protocol. Time to end this war. Endgame Protocol was humanity's final strategy, a coordinated assault on every remaining hegemony. Stronghold simultaneously. 200 human ships would attack the enemy capital, their most important bases, and their leadership structure all at once. The battle for Dominion Prime began without warning. Hegemony sensors detected nothing until human ships suddenly materialized in orbit around their capital world. The vessels seemed to emerge from tears in spacetime itself, their exotic hulls shimmering with energies that hurt to observe directly. Zephyx watched from his command bunker as the sky above his capital filled with impossible ships. His orbital defenses opened fire immediately, but their weapons passed through the human vessels as if they weren't there. "How is this possible?" he screamed at his advisors. "Our sensors show solid targets, but our weapons cannot touch them." The human ships were using dimensional phasing technology, existing partially in parallel realities where physical matter behaved differently. They could choose when to interact with normal space, making them effectively untouchable by conventional weapons. Admiral Rodriguez's flagship, the U's Liberation, materialized directly above the Hegemony Capitol building. Her voice echoed across every communication channel on the planet, translated into the languages of dozens of species. "People of Dominion Prime," she announced, "the age of hegemony oppression is over. Any who wish to continue fighting will be dealt with accordingly. Those who choose peace will be welcomed into a new galactic community based on freedom and cooperation." Warlord Zephyx emerged from his bunker, looking up at the human ships with a mixture of awe and terror. His species had ruled through strength and brutality, but these humans possessed power beyond his comprehension. They could have destroyed his world in minutes, yet they offered mercy instead. "I am Warlord Zephyx," he transmitted to the human. "Fleet, what are your terms?" Admiral Rodriguez's response was swift and decisive. "Immediate cessation of all slavery throughout your former territory. Disbanding of your military forces. Cooperation in establishing democratic governments on all liberated worlds. And trial for war crimes against the species you have oppressed." Zephyx looked around at his broken empire, his disabled fleets, his crumbling capital. The choice was simple: accept humanity's terms or watch his civilization be swept away entirely. "I accept," he said quietly. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. The hegemony had surrendered. The 800-year reign of oppression was over. Billions of enslaved beings celebrated their freedom while former hegemony officials faced justice for their crimes. Commander Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of the Wraith, watching as Aviaran children played in the courtyards of former weapons factories. The bird-like youngsters had never known freedom, but they adapted to it with joyous enthusiasm. "Captain," reported Marcus Chun from behind her, "Admiral Rodriguez is requesting all fleet commanders for debriefing and celebration ceremony." Elena smiled. The silent storm had succeeded beyond humanity's greatest hopes. Not only had they defeated the galaxy's most powerful empire, but they had done so while preserving billions of lives and creating the foundation for a better future. "Set course for Earth," she ordered. "Time to go home." As the Wraith jumped into hyperspace for the journey back to humanity's birth world, Elena reflected on what they had accomplished. Humans had not just won a war, they had proven that intelligence, compassion, and technological innovation could triumph over brute force and oppression. The galaxy would never be the same. In place of the hegemony's brutal empire, a new confederation was forming based on cooperation between species. Humans would serve as protectors and guides, but not rulers. Every species would have a voice in determining their own destiny. The age of freedom had begun, and humanity had shown the way forward. Asterisk